Hey everybody, this episode of Watch Out for Fireballs is brought to you by our patrons, specifically Naveen, Nick, and Pete. Thank you, Naveen, Nick, and Pete. We appreciate you very much. We appreciate all of our patrons. If you want to join them, head on over to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
And you're listening to Watch Out for Fireballs. It is a Games Club podcast.
And this week we are talking about Lucah, Born of a Dream, which is an action RPG developed by Me Less Than 3 and published by Syndicate Atomic for the PC and Switch in 2018.
Yeah. And this episode is executive produced by Brian. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you very much, Brian. I would never have heard about this game otherwise, and I think it's neat.
There
are problems,
it's an
but it's
game.
Neat.
Yeah, interesting game. I do not regret having played it. It's not going into any of my first season worsties or anything like that. It's just going to be straight in the middle, the games I played this year. I knew about it because when we were looking at Souls-like for Bonfireside Chat, I had this on my radar, but I didn't play it because I thought we'd maybe do it for Bonfireside Chat. But Elden Ring came and rescued us. so we're no longer just doing, anything that could conceivably fit.
Somebody in the studio mentioned a Souls-like at one point, so here we go.
We're on the hook.
4-part season, baby. Yeah. This is a better fit for here.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so too. In this game you play, so I want to throw this out there real quick. Any definitive statement we make about this game is open to interpretation.
Yes.
This is the most obtuse thing that I think we've done on the network. Not that there aren't things to pick up, but concrete answers are few and far between by design.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say you play an angel named Lucah. Are you an angel? Is it a metaphor? Are you just a kid? Are you dreaming? Unclear. Super unclear. On the surface, you perhaps play an angel named Lucah, who wakes up in this strange and kind of tortured world, finding that you have been marked. And this causes your nightmares to come to life and fight you. Maybe.
What these nightmares are, how metaphorical anything is up to interpretation. And even like what things are supposed to represent visually will come up for interpretation. But we'll get to that in the aesthetics, because where I think this game shines is the mechanics. And I want to talk about this combat really badly.
Combat's good. It's a top-down Souls-like, basically.
Yes.
With a little bit of kind of Bayonetta character action, spectacle fighter, style fighter, however you want to call those games, a little bit of that sprinkled in.
Yes. Yeah. And this is an arena fighter kind of thing. The world's made up of rooms and corridors. They're going to be sealed off by darkness until you defeat waves of enemies, which will spawn in. I was initially a little bit irritated by this, but when I realized that the combat is good, actually, that ameliorated that somewhat for me.
I still would have preferred to be in spaces, in part because you do explore in this game. The abstract spaces and the arena design of just going into a room, having the door closed and some enemies spawn in. Yeah. Always feels very deeply video gamey to me. Like it didn't interfere with the combat. It interfered a little bit with the rest of it.
Yeah.
Right. So like the fact that this is just a set of bespoke monster fights made it feel harder for me to get my head around the story and tone it was going for.
Yeah.
It doesn't do any problem. It doesn't do any disservice to the combat, which is generally really good. Like I think if I'm going to play a Bayonetta-like, overhead is better to me.
Yes.
My issue with those games is almost always signaling. Enemies, when you're on a one-on-one melee, enemies do tend to hang back and be a little polite, but you'd still get pot shots. And a lot of times these are pretty subtle audio cues, The big example in Bayonetta, you're fighting a one-on-one kind of dual fight, and then those little trumpeters off to the side. they go burp, and that means you have to dodge. But it's not that interesting to me that I'm dodging in the middle of fighting this other thing. It just feels a little like a hat on a hat. You know, a little just, oh, here's some little extra complication. It was already complicated enough.
Yeah.
That doesn't really happen in Overhead because you have perfect information. You can see all sides of you, unless when the scenery gets in the way, which is a minor nitpick of this. But generally, I think this works much better for that. I'm so much better at this than I am at Bayonetta.
Oh yeah. Just by virtue of readability more than anything. And you know, like this is pretty well designed from just like a tactile kind of sense. Like things are really crisp and impactful. The animation and the sound effect really sells your hits, and makes it feel, you know, satisfying to fight most of the enemies. Things get a little bit damage spongy in the second run around, but you know, we'll talk about that problem. But and something I think makes this work for me more so than a character action game does, is that this is kind of walking a tightrope between a more deliberate Souls style rhythm and rhythm of combat, and that's on one side. On the other side is that faster, you know, Devil May Cry, I am putting out as much kind of damage boxes as possible kind of feel.
Yeah. There's it's like it feels like a 60-40 split to me. Like this actually feels pretty considered to me. Part of it is that the enemies that hang back in this are even more polite than they are in 3D spaces. Like you just go to a different part of the map and they just vibe doing their thing on their side of the map, and that makes it, if it's just you and an enemy, it is easy and satisfying to slow read them. You know, get your counters, get your parries. And
that it is I guess what I'm saying is that it isn't a mixture at all, to me. Kind of I think heightens both of them to a certain degree, especially in this you know, in this particular kind of setting. I never want to just flail around like crazy in a video game. Right.
Part of that's the Hades, you know, coming off of Hades, but like that feeling of I'm just button mashing to get through something, it feels really bad to me. I didn't do that in this game, like ever. And at least the way that I played it, it didn't have very much of that, and that was to its benefit.
Yeah. And I played it super aggressively. Yeah.
It's really, boy, it's hard not to get to the aesthetic because that's very important. Mechanically, so you have a weak attack and a strong attack and a dodge roll. You have a stamina meter, which is taken up by dodge rolling and attacking, you know, very Souls like. You also have, there are a couple of innovations to this, one of which is you have a familiar. This is kind of your spell or ranged slot. It operates on this resource called charge that's separate than your stamina, that is charged up through you doing melee attacks. So you want to do melee attacks when you're out of stamina. You can attack at range with your familiar while that wears off, or while you replenish that. They take up 2 different meters.
I like that. That is a good concession, especially when you like break or stagger somebody and you're out of stamina. You have something to fire at them that'll do more damage. You know,
it's a really nice solution to the waiting around for stamina to refill issue. You know, that games can have.
There's an emphasis on dodging and perfect dodges in this. They have a kindness. This feels like something out of Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, but most enemies will flash with like this kind of cross of light symbol when they're about to attack. And if you dodge, you know, at just the right moment toward them specifically, you will parry them. Which kind of puts them into a vulnerable state where they're going to take more damage. This is in addition to just the regular kinds of dodges that you can do. The iframes on this are very generous, which I think is good in a top-down game where, you know, precise placement, like kind of paradoxically is hard to gauge. You know.
Well, it's also, I mean, we're dancing around this art style. It's very abstract. So like, while the hurt boxes are pretty clear, enemies don't necessarily map onto body parts. And so it's a little bit difficult to read, you know, what a wind up looks like in that. So having this little flash that bypasses body language into just like a direct video game command helps a lot.
But like you said, you can stack damage onto them to break them. It's like a stagger kind of deal. and you get the parry. That ended up being my primary way to deal with bosses. Actually, it is the way that you do damage to them. You do meaningful damage.
Yeah, similar to like a Bloodborne, where they want you to be doing visceral attacks on these HP piles here. Your attacks are determined by something called mantras. You find these out in the world. These act as your weapons. They have different, damages, ranges, stamina cost, special effects happen when you charge an attack, and you can set up several of these along with your familiar. So you can set up 2 complete loadouts. They're called paradigms, and you can swap between them at will. So the idea, almost like you're creating your own stance system.
Yeah.
For this, typically stances, short circuit part of my brain. Planning something like this. So I just had a close up damage and a far away damage set up, and that was good enough for me. These kind of systems, I really like it when you can engage with them, but they're not necessary to heavily engage with them.
Contrast.
Similar to when I played Neo, which I basically just did the same stance every time.
Contrast it with Neo, where engaging with different stances and building them up is a necessary way to beat bosses and stuff. It's just it is one layer of fancy too much, I think, for both of us.
Just not to my taste, but this does it right, where the skill floor is low enough that if you don't want to engage with that too much, you don't have to. I can imagine somebody doing great work, very quickly flashing between them. And that's part of the appeal of the character action game. Is very precise combo inputs for this kind of stuff.
And that's one of the virtues you can equip, like one of the rings that you get there, where like, okay, if you switch stances, if you switch paradigms precisely at the end of a combo, then you will I believe it's like a damage boost or something like that. So like you can build around specifically almost doing like a timed reload or something. Just
the key pulse in Neo, that kind of thing. These virtues, these ring slots work with a build point system very similar to like Paper Mario. You have a certain number of FP or what have you to equip these. And some of these are really important and transmorphative. There are ones that are a little bit of a snooze, but generally these are worth it. And they're an interesting choice because you want to equip more of them than you can.
When we say big stuff, it's like, they bring in the witch time system where perfect dodge will slow down time for a short amount of time. They give kind of an analog of Bloodborne's regain system where after you take damage, you might have a short amount of time to hit that enemy again to get that damage back, to get that health back.
Stuff like that. Slowing down all the projectiles of an enemy, or of all enemies, things like that. Pretty good. The way you increase this is you buy prayer beads. This is during these merchants. These merchants show up, which is pretty rare in the game, but the game's really short as well. So, even though there's only 4 merchants in it, the game is like a 6-hour game. You have 2 consumables. One is just an Estus flask. It's pretty neat. It's great. Estus flask. Go Estus flasks. If it's not broke, don't fuck with it. The second one though is a cool innovation called rewinds. And this reminds me of like save states, like playing Doom or something.
That's a good way to put it.
If you've overcommitted to a room, this fight has not gone very well. I've used too many resources. I could have done that better. You use a rewind and you restart the encounter. You get a certain number of these, and these are recharged on bonfire rust, similar to Dark Souls or when you die. But I never was running low on these, and it's a really elegant solution to practicing an enemy. We talk about a lot more on Bonfire Side Chat, but like one reason why I hate one-hit kills. I hate one-hit kills in video games. One reason I hate them is they're not good for learning. You can find out that one attack will kill you, but you don't get to see any more of that boss fight. The first time I'm fighting a boss, when I'm learning it, I want to hang out there for a little while to at least get an idea. This does that. You can go into every boss with a handful of rewinds, try them out, kind of like dodge around, get their measure. And then when you eventually get hit by something, be like, okay, now I know I need to watch out for that. And rewind. It's a really good system. The one thing of like Bonfire Side Chat DNA this does have is like I feel like for a while we were just harvesting like one perfect idea from every Souls like we were covering.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is the one that I want to take from this. I think this is the coolest thing that this game does.
This is really cool because this is positioned as a healing item, kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are, using this to recover from death, just back to wherever you were before, before you used it, before the encounter began, you're kind of behind. Right. Because, like you have whatever you had when you began with it. Right. So if you're like at half health or whatever, you have no heal. It's like, all right, I'm going to go into this encounter and just try and make the better of it here. It did save me from dying, but like, do I actually have enough in the tank to get through this encounter? The proper strategy for this is to like use them proactively almost. So you don't get into that situation where you are walking into a potentially challenging, really challenging bit with nothing in the tank. And
a lot of times you're gonna have half your life in the tank.
Mm-hmm.
It's a game where degrees matter. So like if I can take 4 hits, that's great. If I can only take 2, maybe 2 or 3 tries at only taking 2 hits can do it.
Mm-hmm.
I can get that clear, and then maybe a bonfire is there. After that, like I can get that sense of relief that comes in Souls likes from getting to that checkpoint where I get to refill my resources. It's a really good system. I'm kind of surprised I haven't seen variations on this more. It's really good. To me, it is the mechanical innovation that is the one real original mechanical innovation of this. That I'd like to see elsewhere. It's really good.
Agreed. We mentioned bonfires, and they're crosses, like little graves. Where you can level.
Do you get it?
Oh man. but this is where you level up. You trade in your experience. It's important to say when you die, you don't lose your XP. There is no corpse run system in this.
You gain corruption.
Yes.
You get closer to just a game over.
Yep.
Which is kind of a bummer, but it's a really short game. And if you get that, then you get like an ability and it's fine. It did not end up bothering me that much. That kind of thing usually drives me a little nuts. Did not bother me too much in the second run of the game when it gets pretty hard near the end. That's where it got a little bit more odious to me. Like I started stressing the corruption meter, but up until that point, fine.
Yes. But yeah, these act as your checkpoints, and you can fast travel between them, although there is almost no reason to.
Well, and I defy you to associate one of these bonfire locations with a image of a place in your mind.
Yes.
Like there is a really, like, you can get into an area that suggests a place, again, kind of like Doom. Like it suggests an area, but the relation between them, like I couldn't tell you for a million years. Like there's no way I can construct a mental map of this game.
No.
It's just Teflon looking because of this abstract art style and because of the lack of details. Like I know I'm in a trailer park. I know I'm in a church. I know that, I know I'm at a lighthouse, but where those things are in relation to each other, I got no fucking clue.
Yeah.
There's this whole middle section where you ride a train back and forth between different stops and you can pull up a map like during it. Like you can look at the fucking map, but like, man, is it, it's a hard game to get a sense of place from.
Yeah. And that feels like it is intentional. They are intentionally trying to make you feel it out at sea, but it's like, okay, you traded, like a spatial identity for that. It's up to me as the player to decide which one of those I like a little bit more. I'm kind of a porque no los dos arrive at the same feeling with, while still having a sense of place, but.
To me, it feels like it's part of the whole kit and caboodle of its obtuseness.
Yes.
As part of its storytelling style, which, like, spoiler, I'm sure there are people who love that. I don't think this works personally.
Yeah.
So I'm fine if folk disagree, and you can think I'm stupid for that. You can think I'm a blunt stone. I just don't get it. But to me, this is irritating in how it tells its story. I got more annoyed than anything else. And this plays into it, like not having a sense of these places between each other. Like it's just an abstract, dreamy world. Like we don't have that kind of stuff. And I'm like, you can do that and make it seem kind of cool though. And still have kind of a sense to it. This didn't have that.
Yeah. Yeah. The level up system is kind of cool. The way that it gives you those 4 options that you pick from, as opposed to just giving you the the ability to allocate points where you want them to go every time.
Yeah, this feels like a wash to me. Like it's kind of neat. I don't know if I like it. Like there were definitely times I would not be able to level up the thing I wanted to level up.
Yeah.
It gives you 4 random options of either stats you can upgrade or virtues you can grab. And it's fine. It's fine. It's like it's kind of interesting that like, oh, I'd really like to level up my attack power, but instead I have to level up my charge capacity.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if that's interesting. I don't know if that's like a good taking away of player freedom.
Yeah.
What does that serve? It's kind of interesting, but I don't know if it's good,
Carl,
like, yeah, I said it was interesting. I mean, I just legitimately don't understand what this is doing.
Yeah.
For the gameplay, like, what is the point of this?
Yeah. Any bummers are offset by the fact that level ups are incredibly common.
Oh yeah,
and the max cap that you're going to hit is relatively low. Like I maxed out.
Yeah. Yep. And then you can re-roll them, which is good.
Yes.
You can reallocate your points and you can re-roll the charms that are available later. So you get the charms, your 4 different things you can get. You don't want them, give them a re-roll. And again, it's fine. It kind of like adds like engagement without purpose to me a little bit. One thing I like, so the game is hard. This is a tough game. It gets really tough at the end. Combat difficulty can be tailored really granularly. When you start the game, you pick different values, both for the enemy's strength, which is called sin, get it, and your own vulnerability, which is called punishment, get it.
That's a video game's name.
Yeah, sin and punishment. You get to choose values for that, similar to the like puzzles and combat difficulty in Silent Hill 2. And then they just put cheats in the menu.
I love it.
Yeah, kind of Celeste style.
That's if you're here for the story and you're here for the aesthetics and stuff, this will afford you it. It's meaningful stuff too, like, hey, attacks and dodging don't take stamina away.
Yeah.
Like it's a big deal. Your health pool is massive, enemies are weak, things like that. So, and you can turn them off and on. There is nothing there that shames you about it either. Yeah,
which again is becoming a thing I really respect.
Yes.
And the developer wants you to see the end of this. We'll get to that when we talk about the storytelling, but like this is a game that is a very personal meaning to the developer and they really want you to get to the end. So it makes sense for them to add these in.
Yes.
I feel like games should all basically have these.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid to admit, like near the end of the second run through, the first clue there, second run through, every once in a while I'd put on, I never obviated it. I never just put them all to 10. And just, steamroll the game. But I'd be like, you know what? This encounter is irritating and I would like to get past it.
Yeah. Also, I did another version of this before. Yeah.
I mean, that's the big thing too, which is reverse. That's Gary Bane.
Yeah.
The reverse of Gary Nip. It's like Wolfbane, but for me. And this game is in the long list of games that aren't quite as new as they think they are when they do that. I do like that bit though, that they do that. It works. The game is very short and it's meant to be played multiple times, at least twice.
Yeah.
Through there. Yeah.
That's the only way you get the true ending of this is to go through twice. What's weird is, and we're getting to the point where there's, spoiler stuff, but I think it's worth saying for people who are like, oh, that could be, because like Nier Automata becomes a different game. On the second and third playthrough, like it is appreciably different, right?
Yes.
We can argue whether or not it's enough. I'm not trying to convince you to play Nier Automata. But
it is different. Like an example that I have the context for is Nier, right?
Yes.
Which eventually becomes different.
Yeah.
And a stated influence on this game. The creator loves how Nier did that. Yeah. It gets different. It's appreciably different at parts. The sameness is never accounted for.
Right.
When people talk about these, like how much of it is just the same here. In this game, what they want is for you to want to play on a higher difficulty, faster, stronger, better.
Yes.
Like to be so addicted to the combat and these enemies that you just want to play again. And they don't just hide the true ending. Like they hide tons tons of context, like almost all of the context for what you're doing.
When I finished the first run of this, when I got credits the first time, I had a vague sense of like the, it's not it's like a theme, but it wasn't even a vague sense because its themes are ridiculously. I mean, there's not a lot subtle about what this is trying to throw invective at.
Yes, it's extremely blunt in what it's talking about. It's extremely obscure in what it's saying about it, other than like a vague good or bad.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So it's like the themes, the themes are screaming at you.
Yeah.
Of just being present. Like, hey, religion, oppressed people, identity, suicide, bam, 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 bam. Those things are being screamed at you, but you have no concrete detail at all during the first playthrough. You get kind of a vague impression like, oh man, church bad. But you don't get to understand what is actually happening, like what the characters are doing. All of that stuff gets like comically dumped at you on playthrough 2 right in the beginning. You get like 10 minutes of text scroll that in a different version of the game could just be at the beginning of the game. Like here's who you are and here's what you're doing. Instead it just doesn't do that and puts it before the second playthrough. And again, like it's interesting. I said it was interesting, but I don't know I don't know if it's good. I don't know if that's a virtuous thing to do.
Yeah.
It didn't have that feeling, even like Nier, which is a game I did not like. When you go through the second time, you get that extra context. It's really meaningful. And it feels like going from one view of an incident to a second view of the incident that recontextualizes it. This feels like you have no view of an incident. And then you play it a second time and you get the first view of the incident.
Yeah.
Like you're just adding context at all. It's not recontextualizing. It's just contextualizing.
Yeah. There's an argument that could be made, and I'm not saying what I took away from this, but what they are trying to say is that, this is a game about struggling against adversity, in both theme and in play. Cause just like it, every game is about getting over challenges and stuff. So, the fact that there is this total futility in the world, and like you need to experience at least one cycle to understand what an infinite amount of this would be. I can see that. I also don't see enough actually bridging. I don't see enough actually bridging story, theme, and play in this to have that really like sing for me, or even be like a functional way to interpret this.
Yeah, that if I were doing a parlor game where I had to come up with a reason for it, that would be what I would come up with as well.
Yeah.
I don't think it's successful though.
Right.
In that I'm pretty sick of the, like, this game has an irritating or bad game design choice because struggle is part of the theme.
Yeah.
Like that's not worth it. You're not getting what you paid for.
Right.
With that. Here, it's, even if that is the idea, the balance is off. There was not enough enticing in the first playthrough to get me hooked, to want that additional context. Like, it felt like just a big abstract pile of nothing the first playthrough, with like some vague like religion bad. I got the big screamy themies during parts of it, but I had there's a real lack of personal like kind of relevant detail.
There's no specificity.
Yeah, there's no specificity in this, and certainly no specificity in playthrough 1. So I don't know what I was supposed to grab onto to want to play the second one. What was supposed to keep me going, other than just wanting to fight these monsters again, which, like, they're fun to fight, but that's never going to be a reason on its own.
Yeah,
like, I need other stuff to hold that up.
I'm a novelty man. I like seeing new stuff.
I like to see new stuff.
The same.
Yeah, and context matters. Like, I want to see new stuff, and I care about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it.
Yeah. And, you could say, all right, yes, this is being vague and mysterious, right? But that lack of specificity hurts there. I think that a mystery gets better when it gives you enough of a framework and enough pertinent detail for you to want to know the answers to very specific questions.
Yeah, or just to have questions.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't come out of this having questions. I didn't have enough. Like, I think about that Jackbox game where you're constructing sentences out of all the words that are available on a thing. I didn't have enough to make a sentence.
Yeah.
I didn't have enough things to even know what questions to ask.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you could be like, oh, you're an idiot. Like, and that's fine if people think I am dumb because of that. But to me, it did not hit that balance. Like,
Yeah.
I can handle ambiguity. I like that. I like being hooked into wanting to know the answer to some questions.
Yeah.
This game did a bad job of that to me.
Yeah. The questions that I ended with were who? What?
Yeah, who and
where?
Why? Just the basic journalistic questions. And this is really, really, aggravated by some choices in the storytelling style. Like,
yeah,
this is spoiler stuff, and it kind of gets into the aesthetic. We talked about the corruption meter a little bit. One of the things during playthrough 2 is that it goes up a lot faster, and then it goes down based on the speed of encounters that you do, which is kind of interesting. Like, you're racing the clock, but it's almost like playing Daytona or something, and you're getting bonus seconds.
I kind of liked it a lot, actually.
I like that. Yeah, no, I thought that was cool. Like, I have got no problem with that. I wish I was fighting new things and getting better context, but I like that bit. That's a really cool idea. And it basically allows you, with your corruption meter going up so fast, it's what allows you to keep a handle on it. That's a really cool idea as well.
Yeah.
There's a storytelling choice in this, and this is getting like a little spoiler wall, where, and this is again jumping ahead notes, but I'm going to say it anyway because it drives me nuts. Characters are not referred to by the same name or sprite.
Right.
So the same character will have different names and be referred to different visually in this game multiple times. And this is intentional. Like, you can read an interview with the creator. He's like, yeah, just keep that in mind. That'll help.
Think about the logic for why this one person would be portrayed these multiple different ways.
Yes.
That is so that is possibly attributed to a big theme about this is identity. Another big thing, which we'll get into a little bit later, is the kind of queer nature of this.
Yeah, there's queer coding happening.
Yeah, so somebody who like a character in this, being known to a bunch of people by different names as they have tried on new identities, and that's part of the initial violence that is done as well. Yeah,
and I'm not saying that's not the part I'm saying I don't get. Like, don't get it twisted. I'm not just saying like, whoa, this person had a name change.
No,
it's not. That's not what's happening. Like, so
nope.
yeah. It's also, with this art style, makes it impossible to tell sometimes what a figure is, you know, let alone who they are.
Making notes on this was a real son of a bitch.
Which malfunctioning Vectrex system represents this character?
But for the changing name thing as well, oftentimes a character will not be given a name and instead will just be referred. You'll see a name like later. And like, oh, that probably refers to like this person. Well, okay. I kind of like to know characters' names when I see them and interact with them.
It makes it really hard to take, like you were making notes. And I think that genuinely is probably the intended way to understand the story. Like, you are meant to have a chart and start taking notes like you're unwrapping serious lore to understand the story. Not only was that not, I don't want that to be the minimum to understand a story casually. It also was really at odds with the pace of play and the type of game this is to me. Like, stopping to write down and be like, oh, I just had this little exchange of barks before this boss fight. Who is this character? What do they represent? Let me consult my notes and cross-reference it with other shapes that could represent that character or other unknown characters. Is not what I want to be doing at the same time I'm doing a high action character action boss fight.
Yes. Like,
they are very separate concerns for me. And did not meld very well.
And it's a little bit, annoying. I'm just going to say the word annoying, even though it's probably more negative. I think it's a shame because that is using this game's art style against it. And I actually really dig the way it looks. Like, it is such a, it is such a bold decision and is committed to fully. And the developer can, will say like, oh yeah, this isn't so much like a choice. It's just, I wanted to do the art myself. And this is what I wanted. Like, he pulls it off really, really well, especially in animation. You know, like this, you're like, if you see a screenshot of this game, you'll remember this is instantly identifiable because it is very crudely drawn, like chunky pixel line art with very little
On black.
detail on
like
black.
reverse, like white on black.
Yeah.
Or, colors on black.
It's an entire game that's in neon. Without the glow, it looks amazing.
It looks
like
great.
the lines, like they do like a squiggle vision kind of thing. So like edges are constantly in motion. There's like an oscillation to it. I love it. You would think it would get confusing in combat, and occasionally it does. But overall, like this stayed startlingly readable for me.
It's readable as critters.
Yes.
It's readable as like this is a figure, and there's a lot of joy to be like to seeing a creature and figuring out like what this is maybe suggesting about its anatomy. Like that stuff really works. It just fell down for me when it was about recognizing a character.
Yeah.
Like this has to be a person. Like when they were monsters, when they're just squiggle vision nightmares, like it made a lot of sense. It reminds, it's like the note-taking approach to the lore not working with the combat or not sitting well with that. It also doesn't set well with the art style.
Yeah.
It's things, again, I think were interesting, but I don't think that they really built each other up very well.
Yeah.
I'm glad you like how it looks. I think this looks really great.
Yeah.
Really, really impressive. It's a Unity game, which is fascinating. Like how they got Unity to do this. It's awesome looking.
Yeah.
Super, super good.
Yeah. I also think this game sounds amazing. The music is fucking phenomenal.
It's really interesting. Again, it's not what it's doing is really perfect for what it is.
Yeah.
It's something I'm going to listen to outside of it, but it's really, really good and atmospheric.
Yeah.
Lots of like metallic noises and stuff that will happen, ambient stuff.
We're going to talk about the storytelling, and with that, it is kind of impossible not to talk about the story itself. So if you are looking to hop off, if you want to experience this clean for yourself with no guidance, obviously the way it was intended, then now would be the point. Because we're going to talk about this. You messaged me early on because you played this before me and said, "Hey, prepare to not be held by this game."
Yeah. It's really confusing.
Yeah.
And that was when I was near the end of playthrough 1 before I got the big info dump that kind of makes the themelets more clear.
Yeah.
Exactly what's happening. But we mentioned and characters change colors, name, looks, shapes. Some of them don't get named until they're dead. You have to refer back to them. And I cannot stress this enough. It's a little squiggle.
Yeah.
Like you might walk up to a little squiggle, have your character name them posthumously, and you have to think back on the context of what that squiggle could match.
Yeah.
After having gone through a bunch of just combat gauntlets without text. You're not, at least for me, I wasn't in that gear to start thinking about that.
No. It goes from the combat gauntlet to like very high drama.
Yes.
Just okay, tappa angst, tappa angst. In a way that is jarring, intentionally so. I don't know. So much is up for interpretation.
Again, at a certain point, like it is an important question critically whether something is intentional.
Yes.
And I think a lot of this stuff was intentional.
Yes.
Like you read interviews with this guy. I still don't think it was, if intentional, not successful.
Yeah.
Not the game as a whole, like, which I think is worth playing.
Yeah.
Right. Like spoiler, like this is recommendable. This is like a B as an overall experience. It's just a frustrating thing to try to talk about the narrative. And I don't think that stuff works very well. I don't think it's to its credit.
To the question of intention, this is well enough put together in so many regards that I don't see this developer making a lot of accidents in and what happens here. That is like weirdly, like what's that? An insultlement?
Yes, something like that. Yeah,
which is like, oh, you're a really good developer who made a lot of very strong choices that I just happen to disagree with.
It did not work for me.
Yeah,
the big themes that are going to pop up: religion bad, dogmatic religion, organized religion extremely bad, very oppressive. And that's a stated, the developer said, hey, I grew up in this Catholic household.
Mm-hmm.
That's right there on Front Street.
Yes. The other one is, like if you read this as a queer narrative, which you absolutely, the beginning of the second playthrough really will, and hammer that home. It is not exclusively, about that, but just talking about these emotional and interpersonal difficulties of growing up queer in a world that desperately does not want you to exist.
Yes, and you could probably insert, queer, and you could trans, non-binary, anything in that kind of whole spectrum.
And there's a certain amount of, like I just said, that like this is a game about big teen feelings, and the further I get from that, I'm not saying that derisively either. Those are very real. I remember that. I'm just so far away from it that when it is this strongly expressed, it is hard not to look at it and think, man, that's really tough. But boy, that goes away. Eventually you'll feel nothing.
There was a sense of that. And that's speaking from a place of privilege, right? Like, yes. Not everybody gets there. Nope. This kind of powerful urge to die that is part of this game and not exist is something I also, I've owned suicidal ideation before.
Yes.
I just didn't, it's not such a big part of my personality that like it being expressed so bluntly can reach my heart.
Yes.
This was a really weirdly like this. It's hard. I don't want to sound callous, right? Because this literally ends when you beat the game the second time. It ends with like a little like, I hope you got a lot out of this, and you're not alone. Like, anti-suicide message, and that's all stuff I agree with, and it's all very good-hearted and virtuous. This kept me at such a remove for the whole thing, and maybe it is because like I'm a straight guy, and maybe it is because I'm old, right? Yeah. Like it's one of these things where on the show, you and I are who we are. We can't not be that. This show is about us playing video games and criticizing them and talking through them. Are there video games that we have a limited perspective? That is the nature of us,
right?
We can try to broaden our perspective, but I can't know what it's like to grow up being an oppressed identity in a highly religious background.
Right.
That specificity feels a little narrowcast to me. Not that there are a lot of people like that, but that's not a universal experience. I don't know what to do with that. If this game, like typically narratives about that kind of thing, what you would do is you have enough So Life is Strange, example, right? A game that like people got mad at us because of our experiences not matching theirs, basically. But there was enough specificity of detail and enough universal feeling to that where I still got a lot of emotional heft and truth out of it. Yeah. I didn't get the exact experience that people wanted me to get from it because I am a straight cis man, but I got humanity from it. Yeah. I don't really get that from this. This keeps me at such a remove because of that lack of specificity that it was really hard for me to feel the humanity in it, even though I know that it's there, that this is a sincerely felt game. I just couldn't connect like even a little bit,
it's so, and like this left me with like really interesting questions. Like I'm pretty glad that we played this, that I played this, if only so I could think about this stuff. But it's like, okay, this is a game whose themes and story and presentation are going to immediately resonate extremely deeply with a lot of people. I would say, like there are people who are going to see this and say, yes, there's me. That. Yeah, I get it. That is me. I'm so happy that something is speaking to me on this experience. And, that is a valid and important thing for a work to be. My question is, how much is it incumbent upon a work like this attempting to communicate something about that condition, not to be persuasive, but to try and bridge, to speak to people outside of the group that it is catering to, people who deeply feel this and know it, even on like a nonverbal level, what is happening here, basically. is it the game's job to bring me in if it is deciding to speak on this other level in a frequency that I cannot hear to people who are going to possibly have a richer experience for not feeling like they're being told or persuaded to care about people like them, right?
Yeah. It to me, the individual choices make that question not as ludicrous as it might seem. Like my impulse is like, no, obviously no one has a responsibility to explain anything.
Yeah.
Right. But this game, the way it obfuscates that stuff isn't just through telling a rich with detail and an incident and specificity story of someone going through that.
Mm-hmm.
It is so purposely smudging all of the details that it's not that it has a responsibility. It's that bridge or that gap that you can't bridge is not just because of experience.
Yeah.
It's purposely obfuscated.
Yeah.
You know, and then I think about the responsibility the game has. Like, the developer wanted us to play it and buy it. You know, it's a fun action game. It's a Souls-like, it's a well-reviewed Souls-like game. This is not, you know, this is at the end of the day, like, I care about this more as art, but it's also a product.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it would be a better product and arguably better art with that bridging. I don't know that, like, they don't need to go to jail for not doing it. It's fine. I still think that the game is worth playing, but I think it would be a better piece of art.
And it's a question, I think, too, about like whether you think, you know, the ultimate truth of this is more valuable to you having had to dig through it and break out your decoder ring and, look for it, as opposed to presenting it in a digestible way that will make it hit even harder and more directly. Right. I'm not arguing for, a lack of subtlety, but again, the degree to which this goes kind of breaks breaks what it is reasonable to ask for.
Arguing for a lack of subtlety at all, because this is so far beyond unsubtle. Like, it's the most obtuse thing we've ever done.
Yeah.
I think, like, it's not, there's a lot of space there.
Yes.
You know, without it being holding your hand. No one's asking to have their hand held during this. We're not saying, like, queer folk, please explain to the straights what it's like to feel suicidal ideation. Like, that's, I don't need that. I don't need that from a video game. Like, I'm not asking that. Like, I understand that. It's just, I really want to. I've read some accounts. There's a weirdly small amount of discourse on this game. When you look it up, I wanted to read queer people writing about this part.
Yes.
Right. Like, instead, most of the writing is about the mechanics, which gave me the impression that, like, the big theming and the huge sincerity vibes to this are not landing for a lot of people in general.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's true, but you don't see a lot of writing about it.
This is early in the month, so people have plenty of time. I will just say Duckfeed.tv/contact by the write in by the 15th to possibly have your message read on the dispatch. I would like to know if this, personally hit for you, in a way that we're kind of talking about. Because it just, we are the people we are.
Yeah, I'm curious about your perspective. Yes. And I did do some diligence in looking for it.
Yeah, I'm also not asking you to justify this game or to speak for everybody who is in a similar. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you don't care either way, that's fine too. Like, nobody's being given a job. Right. It's just, to me, the way this story was being told got in the way of the story and ended up having a profoundly disconnecting effect.
Yes.
For me. And I want to know how much of that is the story and how much of that is simply identity.
Yeah.
No idea.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, do you think this is like artsy and pretentious, or do you think it is way too sincere to be associated with something that's cynical?
I don't know how to, it's told in a pretentious way.
Yeah.
I don't know if the story is I can't separate out, like, stunty communication.
Yeah.
Like this, that's to a purpose, but actually just, again, to my experience, like, just throw that couching onto everything. Just doesn't work. Like, doesn't reach me. I don't get it. I get, and it's frustrating because when you read about it, he's saying, like, all this stuff is intentional. Like, I didn't want to say what happened. I didn't want to actually clearly underline these themes. I wanted to leave it up to interpretation.
Yeah.
There. And my interpretation is like, you got something, you're kind of mad about this stuff, but you took a real fucking long road to get there.
Yes.
And you did it in a really distancing way. I don't know if pretentious is the right word.
Yeah. And I fucking hate that word. It is just what I pulled out. Like that would be the
instinct.
I don't know. Yeah. The 102 level, like, Twitter thing, like, oh, just, the pretentious bullshit. Right.
Yeah. It's also a thing where there's a backlash against pretentious where like, it feels like we can't use it now. And you have to be careful saying it because somebody can just play their trap card and be like, oh, you just didn't get it. And people do that. When you call it's tough. It's tough to talk about media, especially, there are people who are, I wonder, sometimes I want to ask people if like, they think that there is media that does not successfully achieve its goals,
Yeah.
So like, there's probably an attitude that somebody would have listening to us talk about this, where they would say something along the lines of like, you didn't get it, but that doesn't mean that it failed. Like it didn't fail anything. You just didn't get it.
Yeah.
And it's like in that mindset, is failure possible on behalf of a creator? Can they communicate something poorly? Because if so, surely that's a relatively subjective thing. And I can lay out the reasons why I feel like this is communicated poorly. I don't expect anyone to agree, necessarily, but it's not arbitrary. No. I'm not just throwing that accusation willy-nilly.
Yeah, but I don't think this game thinks it's better than me.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with that. Like I love, I like smart media. It doesn't feel smart. It feels kind of like a juvenile expression of insecurity, of having, again, specificity of detail. Like if I name this, if I write about what happened, it will not feel open to interpretation enough. And that is something I associate with, like, again, that real 102 level. Like you've told your basic stories, but now you think a story has to be obscure to have artistic merit. Like it has to be ambiguous.
To take this and apply a similar idea to this. And we talk about this sometimes with media that just intentionally scrambles up its timeline. Like, okay, not just like, oh, we're going to start a media res, like a Pulp Fiction kind of thing where somebody will die and then they show up later. Not talking about that. I'm talking about something like, I mean, the worst example would be Beyond Two Souls, which is just literally, which is literally presented in just, we just kind of cut this up and then re-scrambled and put it back together. But anytime there's like that amount of obfuscation, it's like, okay, you told your story and hopefully by the end of this, it got it across. If I took this and then put it in chronological order,
would it be a good story?
Would it be a good story? Would it be more or less successful? Like how much of that was actually necessary to get to get this across effectively? And there is a certain refuge, there is a certain refuge in obscurity that I think a lot of people that a lot of people will take. And I don't know that you said juvenile before, not juvenile like us making jokes about cum, but more juvenile like a youthful expression or a just an experience, unconfident, right?
A teen expression, experimenting with the beginnings of confidence.
Yes,
I've seen this done, and media I like does it. What if I did it?
Yes.
Like when you read interviews with the person who made this, they talk about, how inspired they were by Nier, how they wanted to tell this story in this new kind of way, and you contrast it with something like, so this is not a game I like. So I'm purposely choosing a game I don't like. So it's not like I'm just pitting Pokemon and shit, right? But compare it with something like Her Story, which was a way of telling a story in a new way.
Yes.
Let us come with a new way to deliver a video game narrative. I don't particularly like that game, but I think that it succeeds in that. And it is to a purpose. The feeling of slowly putting together that story comes at a pace that can only come through the medium of how it's told in that disconnected way. If it were told linearly, it would just be a story. And it wouldn't be that exciting. You wouldn't have that dawning realization. That sense of architecture is very important to that story. Here, I don't feel that. I feel like the dawning realization, instead of it being a dawning realization as to what it was about, it was being hammered by the title or the like topic sentence, you know, the big themes, getting tiny drips and drabs at really weird paces, you know, in huge chunks in between large sections of combat and between beating the game.
No,
You know, that did not give me that like, oh, you know, which is what you would want from this new way of telling a story.
Yes.
I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and
it ended up being irksome. And this is what we're spending a lot of time talking about. I'm going to say, even though, you know, like, oh, you should talk more about the combat, which worked. The combat is good, but it's not, other than the rewind feature, I don't think it's that new. This is the thing that does feel the most noteworthy to me as a game. This is the new thing it did, right? Like, over the top, you know, hyper light drifter. Like, you can play a game that's arena based, iframe based, or, you know, like animation based overhead combat with an interplay between melee and ranged attacks. And it's hyper light drifter. Like, this isn't a knockoff of that, but that's not rare.
Yeah.
This is really well executed here, but it's not super noteworthy. The big capital A art stuff this is trying to do that's super noteworthy is what I think doesn't work. So it's the thing that is sticking with me.
Yeah.
After I played it.
We're also talking about, it feels like we're trying to say this game was developed by a teen. I do not know how old the principal designer on this is.
They've been working in games for most of their life. So they've been working in like mobile and VR spaces for their whole career. They're old enough to have like a real career.
Yes. I think when we talk about it, so this is a debut game, pretty much, like as a lead, you know, small team. This person did most of it themselves. But you know, I think we're associating a lot of this with like teen stuff because that's what this is. This is about. There's an adolescence. There's a coming of age ness to this. And, you know, even if it is not a queer narrative, or if you want to read it as more than that, there is a certain amount of displacement and a lot of angst about your place in the world as a teen. Yes. So when I say this is big teen feelings, I think that is, you know, that is so strongly expressed here that it is kind of shaping a bit of my interpretation of the actual box of this as opposed to the contents.
Yeah. The main person who did this, Colin Horgan, was the lead designer who did most of the things on the game. Has been working in game development, largely again mobile and VR. In 2015, Colin made a top-down arena shooter called I Am Not a Machine for a game jam. Began working on a full version after he's laid off. And then switched to a melee combat system and basically changed this, focused on these mechanics, and then added the narrative afterwards, which is probably part of why it feels a little disconnected, those two things. Yeah.
He says the visual styles was a necessity just because he wanted to do as much of this as he could by himself, you know, which makes sense. However, that did work a little bit against him because major publishers were like, okay, so this is placeholder, right? He's like, no, this is a choice. Like I like the way this game looks. So
that's a shame that people had a closed mind about that, because I think that's one of the big successes.
Yeah.
Of it. Yeah. They kickstarted the game there and it was successfully funded, but it hasn't sold super well afterwards. One of the more obscure games we've done for this show.
Yeah. There is like an expansion. It's like challenge dungeons that you a little bit annoyingly have to go into like right at the end of the game.
Yes.
I didn't want to go in there because I was afraid that it was going to take me to another ending, and I didn't want to go through a third time to get to it.
Yeah, you never know. Once you start making somebody play a game twice to play it, you never know when that'll stop. You give them an inch, they think they're a ruler. I didn't do that because I also, as much as I like this combat, I wasn't hungry for more of it.
Yeah.
Colin has an idea for a follow-up to this game with a new cast in the same world. Wouldn't be called Lucah 2. Also had an idea of doing a version of this that is a team-based, turn-based RPG, like a JRPG in this world. Has some ideas. Two things I want to get out on Front Street. One, I bear this person no ill will. Like, I don't like how this story is told, and I failed to connect with this story. That's not personal. Like, I don't, you know, so I'm not trying to trash the little guy. You know, there's a way that I feel like it does somebody a disservice if you overcorrect to be super nice when talking about a work of somebody because it's a small team.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a product that got put out. You can hang with the big boys. Like, and nobody has to agree with me. I just still had my experience, and it would be disingenuous that I didn't. The other thing is we're going to goof during this because that's what we do. We're the other kind of juvenile. So we're going to make jokes and stuff. We're not laughing about religious oppression or teen suicidal ideation.
Yeah.
It'd be to me, it would be weirder for us just to record this and like have a solemn 2 hours of recording it. That's just not my nature. I don't think that's the show.
Right.
So some people were very surprised by the Edith Finch goofs and gabs, and like, I don't know. Like we goof and we gab. That's what we do.
Uh-huh.
It's not, we're not trying to Dennis Leary, like, oh, anything can be funny. Cha, cha, cha. It's just like, we try to make each other laugh during the show because it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's how I relate to things. You can like or not like that, but understand I intend no disrespect.
Yeah. And also it's not going to change. So if you're holding your breath waiting for that to change, it's probably not going to. Yep. So yeah, goofing on this and goofing with each other is not the same thing as goofing at the victims of the themes in this game.
Yeah. Who are countless, innumerable, and among us, and we should care about them.
Yes, absolutely. And do, actively, like, yeah. We do the verb of that. Let us get into it.
So we open on a black screen. This is a game that does a lot of interludes with text on a black screen and like very rough close up, animation kind of things. Somebody named Colin is asks our name and says, "Hey, have faith in me and have faith in yourself. We're going to go back to where it all began."
Yep. And he describes this dream that we're in, standing on one side of a large expanse, knowing that they, in quotes, only want to hurt you, and knowing the only option is to go forward. And we go into track 1. This game it is an open world. Again, you can technically backtrack. It progresses in the form of tracks, which end up being the music track, and then also kind of substitute for a level.
Yes.
There.
Yeah. So our tutorial, we're moving through this series of dark caves, kind of being sealed off from going backwards by this darkness and these clouds that you cannot progress beyond. Getting our basic combat, rewinds, familiars, things like that. So we also get our mantras, at the start, our basic ones, and an item called the Mother's Sword.
Yes. Yeah. We place a sword in an obelisk as blocking our way, so we're able to proceed. Through this passage, we eventually reach a boss. It's this kind of Grim Reaper figure called the Harbinger. It has these kind of quick sweeps. It does these AoEs, and this is still when you're getting used to the game.
Yeah.
So that's okay. Like, you could probably beat this. This is a soul strike. This is Asylum Demon. You're meant to die on this guy, or not the Asylum Demon. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're meant to die on this. You can probably beat it, but I also died because I didn't know what I was doing yet.
Nope. Didn't know what that big flashing cross meant. Okay. Oh, I get it. Yeah. Yeah. But we are kind of taken back, through this. We get a text describing, something is awakening and rejoicing, and we're plummeting kind of deeper and deeper into this dream. There are a few plot mandatory deaths in this, and this is one of them. This is also where we get a chance to adjust our sin and punishment level. Hey, that's a game.
Yeah, that's a game. They said the title. Again, that's enemy strength and your strength.
Yes.
Or your weakness, basically. Mm-hmm. I left them at mid, trying to play on normal. Yeah. So our dead body is there. It lies next to this river, and this robed figure walks up and prays over you, begging something called the Null Sun to have mercy. You wake up a little while after that, and you're in the woods. We find our first familiar. This is the Impulse familiar that does a little spread shot, short range, kind of a shotgun blast here.
I'm going to stop making specific call outs to when we get these as the notes go on, just because specifically with mantras and sometimes with familiars, the the distinction is so subtle as to not be worth mentioning what you pick up
Yeah.
where.
You get a wide variety of these things. They're also missable.
Yes.
You can get these in a different order. You can get different ones. Something this has, one of the reasons why the world design of this game bugs me is because you are incentivized and rewarded to search the world for secrets. You end up in the kind of JRPG dungeon problem a lot, though, where you're at a screen with a crossroads. One of them goes to a dead end that has treasure. One of them continues. There's nothing to indicate which one is which. So if you go to the one that continues, you try to backtrack, and about half the time you just can't. The little red corruption just springs up behind you, and it says you cannot backtrack through the darkness. So whatever was in that little diverticula, you are closed off from, unless you either fast travel back later or get it on playthrough 2. I'm not a completionist, so this didn't bother me, but it did affect my feelings of exploration. It made exploration not very fun for me.
Yeah. There is a young woman resting against a rock nearby. She is small like us. The road figure who woke us up is big. That is an important distinction. Everybody like us is, marked. We're going to literally we're put into arenas to fight and die.
Yes.
Children, adults kind of thing. She says, "Oh, there were others with me, but they went ahead to try and find a way out." And talking about our conditions, he says, "Hey, we're incomplete and we need to get out before this darkness comes." Things are vague. Somebody is talking about a null sun right now, like for an open. when I thought this was going to be just like the opening ellipticality before I got more context, relatively soon, I was way into it.
Yeah, I was fine with the idea there's like this nothing chasing us. Like, yeah, that was fine. A null sun is a cool idea. I was with you. Spoiler, like, unclear if that's actually what's happening.
Right.
I completely forgot the null sun was a thing
until
because they don't mention it again. Until the end. And then reading these notes, because it's not like very many of these things are going to keep coming back to be developed on. This is what you get. To the north, there's a locked gate. You cannot get, it says no access without registration. So we kind of go off into this little combat alley where we're fighting these little bird guys. We pick up our first Estus flask, this health essence here.
Yeah. And we get down by this other section of river. This is where we get the parry tech. Very important. This is going to unlock a lot of fights for you. A vine will take you into kind of a sub dungeon here, kind of up into these cliff caves. And the way forward is blocked by some vines. We need an object to get through them.
Yes, which we find a little lower in the cave. This rotten seed that will kill these vines. So we go north in the caves. We're fighting these birdmen. We're fighting these little Cthulhuid monsters that kind of hang out. They look a little bit like Ithlids, but sketched out like a malfunctioning Vectrex AI. Being told to draw one. They shoot out these little delayed fireballs on top of their normal attacks, mixing up ranged and melee. Again, not really a problem though.
Yeah. We reach a pretty scene. We're still in the caves, but we get to this kind of overlook, kind of looking out towards this sunset. And our option is to jump down. I believe the first of many, jump ?
Second one, like we've already fallen down a large space. Like you're constantly falling in this. I was very surprised to see Silent Hill 2 like not as a influence for this, but you do a lot of like capital A art falling.
I wonder if that's just so in the water that you don't even have to
call it out. Yeah. So you jump down, and we jump down to a boss arena with something called the Hive. This kind of weird crystalline being at the top of the screen that sends out little groups of shards to fight you. So it's a duo boss right in the beginning here. They do these very slow, like kind of melee attacks, and then sometimes we'll throw projectiles. Either of which would be the easiest thing in the world. The only complication is you're fighting two of them.
Yes. Had a little bit of trouble with this. I was still getting my feet under me.
Yeah. I had no idea I had gotten to the end of a level. It felt, because of the way that the space works out, I just was like, jump, and I was like, why not? May as well. Got nothing else to do. And then jumped, and there was a boss, and I had no feeling that I had done a level before that. Like a space with an idea.
With like two exceptions, the levels in this game are extremely slight, which is fine. It's just paced very strangely.
Paced super weird and doesn't have that feeling of like, I just got through an area. That area is about this.
Yeah.
Like if I put a gun to your head, which I'm not going to do because we're friends and because I rely on you for business.
Mm-hmm.
But if I would put a gun to your head and said, who is the hive? Like in a bonfireside chat way. Like imagine the alternate universe where we did this for bonfireside chat. Can you imagine the nightmare of trying to explain what all of these bosses are?
I mean, this one's a little bit easier because like a person pops out.
A person does pop out of it.
Yeah, and I think that person is meant to be seen as it's Christian. It's the I mean, who you think is the big bad?
Guy? Unclear if it is that person. Again, there's a gun to your head, man. Like if you're wrong about this, you get shot. Like you know,
I don't know. Tell my wife and kids I love them very much.
Just it's this is an easier boss. I don't know why this character is inside a duo crystal, or why the duo crystal is fighting me here.
Yeah,
that I do not know. There's just all of a sudden like introducing the Gloose. Like here's the hive.
Yeah,
you know. When you kill the hive, you know, a person again emerges from it and runs away immediately. You inspect the corpse there of the crystal part and you get the anima mantra. I tended to favor slower big damage things because I was doing a lot of parries and stuff. And I like that you get one really early.
Yeah. Anima took me for a while until I got the Thanatos or whatever it is.
I use Thanatos for the whole rest of the game.
Yeah.
So
we go back to the woods area where we were before, and where the woman was lying. There is just a cross insignia there. She has moved on, and we use this at that gate, which I think it's important that it says error. You know, you are not registered or whatever. Again, because of the art style, it is very hard to get a sense of space in this. You
Am I in
think
cyberspace? Like, is this a Matrix run?
Yeah.
You know?
Or you're in these woods, you washed up, like, okay, is this medieval? I don't know if I'm using like, are these swords that I'm swinging?
Yeah.
You know, it's really just like energy, you know, swipes that you end up doing. But like we are in kind of a new weird, you know, mash 'em up of fantasy, sci-fi kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
This is post-apocalyptic with magic and religion and shit.
When I read the air thing, the first thing I thought was with the art style that I was in a simulation, and that the red stuff, which looks like corruption, the darkness looks like a corrupting hard drive chasing you basically. That was a working theory for a little bit. Not the case. You know, this art style would work really well for like a Matrix kind of thing. When you get into this door, this gate, starts track 2, Flesh Without Blood, the village of Sanctum. And this village has all these zealots praying for the rapture while they work the ground with their sickles. I
thought this was an outdoor rural village kind of thing. I watched an Aaron Signal video where they talked about this, and I can't unsee it now. Their view on this was these were flagellants. Like we are inside of a church and they're whipping their back.
Again, unclear. I can see both.
Yeah,
with that, they're doing a little animation.
Yeah. The head priest, again, big guy, most of their people are small, calls you over and says, hey, it's time for your baptism. And when he reaches out, we get one of these dream sequences again, sketch and very rough animation, you know, talking about just the feeling of being invaded by this filthy and profane presence.
Yeah. You're going through this little dream sequence when two guys come in, two big beef boys. The Hutchinson brothers come in and they say they've been praying for something that's actually started happening. Their priest's son is here, who I don't know again if this is supposed to be somebody who I recognize from later.
No, this is Christian. This is
Christian. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, confusing to me.
Yeah.
Says, you know, I have a bad feeling about this, but is disregarded when we go out. It's this field full of these scarecrows. And we get a hopeless boss fight as the second boss fight of the game. This thing called the Messiah.
Yeah. Just fills the air with projectiles. Like this is not even meant to be approachable or doable. And when you die, like your body is lifted up and kind of, you know, crucified, and you are among the scarecrows as one of them. Yeah.
Otherworldly presence that turns people it kills into scarecrows. Pretty great. I don't really know what's going on here.
Have I got a horror game for you? It's called Mundan. It's about the Swiss Alps and it rules.
Nice. Nice. What actually happens is you wake up back in the sanctum after you get scarecrow-fied. All the zealots are now scarecrows now, and you find a travel pass where the priest's son left his Metro card, so you can grab that.
Yeah. No more stopping for tolls. You got fast pass, baby.
Yeah, finally. This whole game is about tolls, and we didn't get it. It's a libertarian screed. You fight the unholy seatbelt at the end.
Oh, I read it as being anti-tolls. I thought it was just about the perils of infrastructure privatization.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. There's a train that probably features.
True. Well, you do destroy a train. True. So it's one in the W, one in the L.
Yeah, it's a real wash for trains.
Yeah. Oh man, but this gets you down. The baptismal pool has turned into this ladder down into the subway, and we get to this first chamber, and there's a little moat on the ground. You're picking up memories. We're going to find out these are like memories of friends. This person named Nikki describing kind of being bereaved after somebody left her. Very vague.
Either people who left a church or left a cult, something like that, it felt like. This is a huge level. The last level was very slight. Now this is huge. This is a subway area with a train that goes between these different stops that all have these all diverticulate underground areas you can go through. Run to our first shopkeeper here. He sells you virtues. You can get the rosary that allows you to equip more. And it gives you a tiny bell that allows you to travel to a place called the Familiar Garden where you can pet your familiars. How much damage has Can I Pet the Dog done to video game development where now everyone has to include it under threat of review bombing?
Under threat of being... Wait, are people actually review bombing because of... Okay. I was going to say, that's fucking ridiculous.
No. I don't know if anybody actually has a reaction. I just know that you see it now as a default all the time.
Yeah. So I thought that this was going to take me to a place called the Familiar Garden. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that place.
I was looking for something familiar. Like, okay, like this will say something about the character.
A story happened. Yeah, like you go there and it'd be like, oh, this was the place where this happened in the church.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be like my hub. Like, oh yeah,
it's
you
return. Chow's paradise.
You return to
most of their life.
No, and it turned out it's the Familiar Garden. It's the garden for the familiars.
Yeah, they hang out and vibe. It's the Chocobo Village.
Yes. The shopkeeper, he does the cowboy from Mulholland Drive. He says, "Oh, you'll see me 2 more times if you're good, 3 more times if you're bad."
Yeah, and this changes as you go through. Mm-hmm. He is saying how many times he will appear.
Yeah,
which is interesting. So the subway dungeon you can also get around without using the train. You end up fighting a lot of enemies. This is the one area where you can use this little fast travel to bypass some of the fights.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's interesting. It's the one place in the game where you can do it. It's odd.
It's interesting, but I found myself getting more disoriented than just if I had decided to progress without it.
I ended up progressing with it because it was there and it was a major reward to get the card or to get the lever piece that allowed me to use it.
Yes.
So I thought that's what I needed to do. Like the game was communicating to me, this is the way forward. It turns out not the case. It's actually a confusing way forward that you don't need to use.
Yeah. It's like, okay, you need to get this lever to make the train go, west and only moves east. It's like, okay, is my destination west of here? No, that's as far as you can go. It's just a way to backtrack in the level.
In a game where you can fast travel between bonfires, if you can somehow puzzle out what line of text refers to what space.
Yes.
If
you head into these upper chambers, you pick up another train manipulation item. It's called the delimiter. And a key card. You'll get a speed pass in addition to your travel pass. Yeah.
You skip the line.
Yeah.
It gets you through a premium access gate.
Primo. Yeah. This will let you get onto the high-speed train and plow through this barricade. that was blocking the way along these tracks you could go along. While you're riding, this PA voice is speaking to you, asking, why do you resist? Why do you resist when you know that you will die? And it says, we can save you. You can save you. We can save. You must embrace him, a capital H. So
yeah, get it. Christian oppression.
Yeah. Staring at a picture of Jesus. Yeah, I'm seeing some religious metaphor here.
Yeah, just the cross and a bottle of piss. Just,
I honestly don't think that they're that they think they're being clever with that.
No.
Yeah,
they're not. Yeah. They're not being subtle with that. It's just the subtleness is in all the wrong places.
I don't think they think they're being clever with that. I should say. Yeah.
Oh no. Yeah, I was agreeing with you. I don't know if I said it right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just also. I'll go out on a theme and say this. I find this to be a little bit of a tired theme.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big fan of organized religion at all, but just the it's bad. People do shitty things in the name of missionary work. Like, yeah, sure, they sure do. Like that is a very old and steady thing to write a story about. It feels like.
Yeah, it's also I am a little bit sympathetic to telling that story every once in a while, because every day there's someone either born or who gets out from this, who maybe this is the first thing they encounter that is going to be their introduction to that pretty important theme. So like I'm balancing that against, like, should I hold that against this? The fact that I have seen this a bunch, is that actually a mark against this thing on its own terms? Yeah.
I mean, there can be a dead story.
Yeah.
I mean, it's up to the eye of the beholder, but I think that it's worth saying if something is just a story that's been told a million times.
Yeah.
Like that's a cogent criticism. Like, yeah, it's an important story. And like the theoretical person who this is their first exposure to it, that might be being bad. Like, yeah, I'd rather have them have it than not. Yeah. And if this is literally the thing that gives it to them and they wouldn't find it anywhere else, like, yes, that is an unalloyed good. Yeah. It's just artistically, I don't think that has much to do with it.
Yeah.
Like it still can be a thing. You could also tell this story in a different way.
Right.
There's a way to tell this kind of story about the horrors of religion in a more subtle way than having a computer voice say, why do you resist when you will die? Embrace capital HM.
Yeah. It's it's part of why I phrased it almost like a question. Like I've got, I honestly don't have a reckon, but also it does not, it is not a kindness or a service to sort something out of being worth criticizing or talking about in detail, just because of, because
it might do some good.
Yes.
It sure do suck though. When a church do this, like that fucking sucks. It's awful.
I'm pretty happy I was able to just like walk away from mine. Like, okay. So
walk away from your churches, folk.
I know I'm breaking your heart, Grandma, but
it wasn't good for you.
True.
Yeah. You walk north from here after you get off the subway. We see this pink ghost man run away from you, and we follow him into a boss chamber where he turns into the Forsaken.
Yeah. The Harbinger, the Forsaken. Got no idea what this is.
It's a guy.
It's a big skull, big guy. Has got these hand-like things that float by him. That's kind of neat. That like it's kind of like his body is wrapped in a cape of hands. Cool. Yeah. I got it. And he does slashes with those, but also shoots these huge fireballs that leave these burning trails behind them, where you've got to be real careful where you dodge. If you don't want to take damage, and taking damage matters in this. Like it counts.
Yeah, it will hurt you. You beat him, and we leave the train tunnel through this wreckage. We find that priest's son, Christian, waiting for you, and he blames you for everyone's death. He's like, "Why are you still alive after they're all dead?"
Yes.
Him yelling at you and angsting at you did end up also feeling a little flat to me. I was like, I just got here, man. I don't know what's going on.
Do we know each other? I'm real sorry. It's the survivor's guilt sucks.
Yeah. What did I do? I, the player, have no sense of ownership over this because I, the player, have received no context for the story. Therefore, this very emotional accusation falls very flat because I have nothing to hang it on.
Yeah.
There's no supporting structures to it.
he also ends up being kind of shonen to a degree, where like
Dude,
he's like, prove that you're better than me, kind of thing.
He shonen's out. Like this game has this weird closet shonen thing to it. Like the whole thing is very deep and metaphorical and lyrical. And at the end, it's like people comparing power levels and like it straight up goes real Dragon Ball for some reason at the end.
But like this is leading into the theme too. So he's not just angry that everybody's dead and you're still alive. He's saying, my father forgave me for what I was, saying that I was almost whole again, almost ready to ascend. My father forgave me he was about to forgive me for what he was. And then just you took that all away. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I am not clear how I took that all away.
It's like Lenny showing up late to Flanders' freak out.
It's real similar what I do. Yeah. He attacks. This is our first of a series of fights with him. They're kind of dual fights.
Yeah.
He has the same moveset as you do, or generally like the same moveset. He has different different paradigms, but his name is Christian. He has his slashes, and then his familiar casts a cool laser beam, which you can eventually get.
Yeah, it's good. That's what I use my entire second playthrough.
Same.
Yeah.
You beat him into submission, and he says that you both deserve to die, and then warps away.
A little harsh.
Yeah. Again, I have no idea who you are.
Yeah.
You travel, and see, again, that matters. Like I imagine a straw man being mad and being like, no, you get who he is throughout the game. And then you're supposed to think back on him saying that and then feel the effect of it. And I have a very hard time. Like if I'm feeling nothing in the moment, like it's very hard for me to grasp onto that. So to know to bring it back later.
Yeah.
If a guy just randomly says, you did this, it's all your fault with no, like that's a very common video game thing. Like you fucked it up and you don't know. That happens a lot in video games. Yeah. When it does, there are hints and there are, again, very specific bits of detail. Compare the dawning realization that you sank the car in Disco Elysium.
Right.
That is a you fucked it up thing. The character doesn't just shonen yell at you that you ruined everything and then run away to go fight you again, though. They know, but they're walking you to it. Yeah. They're like, there's a tragedy in that you don't know. It's not just player ignorance, it's character ignorance. Here, the character knows, presumably. I just don't know because the game has not given me any fucking text.
Yeah. We get a clear indication later on of what Christian's relationship with the main character is. Yes. But also, given the nature of this world, is this actually them speaking, or is this something trying to fool us into a conflict when it does not want us to be reconciled to each other. And
again, I have even though we do get a clear idea, I don't even have like a fun little guess idea at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
So we walk along the tracks and we get to this, it's like a tropical forest town. It's like a trailer park, but there are some houses around. It's entirely abandoned. There's this office building to the south. It's got a tape marked future in it, but we need to find a place to play it.
Yes. There's a trailer in the yard behind this office that has another videotape called Past. Gotta grab that as well. The beach to the east has a stranger on it, and you talk to him. You talk about how they used to have the stranger talks about how they used to have someone, but they left because they didn't like what the stranger became. And they talk about how they've always been trying to be something they're not. Again, very, big identity themes.
Yes.
There.
So we go to the basement beneath kind of the central house that acts as our save spot. There's a cross inside, and there's a VCR hooked up to a TV, and we watch these tapes. The first one that goes in is the future, and we see these glowing red numbers, or glowing red figures rather. There's a humanoid. There's this rift. Occasionally, like in the stage, we've seen like a rift, and we'll hear a little phrase when we touch it, and then an enemy will come out. And then we see an archway. And then the tape ends and we get the numbers 149. We're going to input those a little bit later. It's not a year. It's the number of days I spent in an asylum in a youth. We go and we watch The Past, little treat for two people. We see this rolling ball or boulder picks up speed as it gets closer, similar to the train coming at the TV thing.
You see a rough drawing of 2 eyes crying in a mouth. And this also ends with the numbers 149.
Yeah. There's a red barrier down here stopping us from going into these caverns off of the basement. That ends up being a shortcut, an unnecessary one, I would say.
Yep.
But the way to go is there is a school building to the north. There's the front door is locked with a code. That isn't the number that you put in. I accidentally fat fingered it, and I put in the wrong number, and that gets you into an unwinnable confrontation. I fought for probably 10 minutes, seeing if I could get to the end of it, and I just had to die as I ran out.
What's interesting is I think you can beat it in the New Game Plus.
Huh.
Like I had the same experience and then did the same thing the second time, and eventually it ended.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
Huh.
No idea.
Don't know. So. But it gets you inside the school building, where you're going to be going up the different floors. There is that path back down in the basement. But these floors have more of those rifts around, and all of them kind of like have this lamentation. You know, there's some kind of regretful message that is being played as the enemies spawn in that you have to kill. And you've got to hunt around and find all of them in order to proceed.
Yes. Yeah, so you go and you hit all these little bits, fight all these dudes. You eventually get up to the rooftop, and there's a woman in a cape standing on the ledge. It says, I told you, I know what I need to do. Why did they bother sending you anyway? They turn around, when they see you, they apologize. They thought you were somebody else.
Yeah. She says, hey, you're free to follow me. But my path isn't going to lead to any positive outcome. You know, we're all doomed anyway, regardless of what we do. And then she jumps.
Yep. First time I played, I jumped. It makes you end up down at the bottom. Surprisingly little.
Okay. I thought it was going to be like, okay, does it change something about the rest of the playthrough? Seems important if you decide.
That I noticed.
Yeah.
I thought maybe in jumping, I had messed up and locked myself out of the good ending. So when I did it again, the second time I didn't jump and thought maybe it was a test.
Yeah.
No idea. You die, you respawn down at the bottom where you'd go anyway.
Right.
So.
Huh.
Yep.
Anyway, you go back down and you go into the basement. The gates where you need to go are open. And we get up out of the cellar door, headed east from the school. And now we're on like this desert highway. We can take the bus if we want. But there is also, you can just run along. I think there's a virtue off to one of the sides if you're poking at the sides.
Yeah.
But you get to the outside of this like Colosseum looking thing, and the path around it is blocked. They say only those who fight for the cardinal can pass.
Yes. So we go into the building here. This small kind of desert community built around this Colosseum here. To the south are worshipers who are ecstatic because there's a new fighter. There's a band playing. Mm-hmm. There's a little tent city where the gladiators live, all little guys. There are various states of fading away and dying. So this is a gladiatorial combat thing, but imagine this twisted fate. It's a preacher who puts kids, makes them fight against each other.
Yes.
At the far north, there's a woman that we helped back in the forest. She's there again. She thanks you for your help, but doesn't want to talk.
Yeah.
And then you have to climb the ranks of this Colosseum fight.
Yeah. To build up your rank to unlock the final encounter with the champion. And when you're in there, like you're in this Colosseum, you can see the adults, the larger figures, they're up in the stands and cheering, and the cardinal's up on his MC stand, things like that.
Yeah. So the strongest little ones for whom the darkness hungers, makes you think. The champion appears. It's the woman from the forest. Her name is Sarah. Only through attrition can we be cleansed. Praise be, let the nightmares roam.
I don't know what this is trying to be allegorical of. I also didn't grow up in the Catholic. Is that a thing about the Catholic
Boy fights?
faith where not specifically boy fights, but like I know it's like intensely hierarchical, but like, is there yeah. You might be the wrong person to ask because you didn't grow up in this either. I don't know what this is. If this is literally making reference to anything, or
I choose to think of it as literal because it's the only way that it's not a painfully like frustrating Pink Floyd The Wall-esque metaphor to me.
Yeah.
You know, like this person happened to grow up in a very specific sect where the cardinals fought kids against each other. It's the funniest answer as opposed to trying to think of like, you could make a general argument about people, adults in authority pitting children against each other, I guess.
Yeah.
By encouraging them, being separate and like teasing each other, ostracizing each other.
Yeah.
And if you want to tie it into the identity thing, like, the adults are creating the culture in which these kids of oppressed identities are othered.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Nothing stops the fact that you go into a church where the cardinal says, let them fight. Let only the tastiest of little ones be appetite for the darkness.
Yeah.
It's so fucking cartoony.
It's
the wall is a really big, like, it feels very The Wall to me.
Yeah, that feels about right. It's just, I was about to say, what does an organized religion gain by kids being miserable? And it's like, oh, of course, fucking everything.
Yeah,
they gain compliance.
Yeah, and they there are. I'm sure there are very oppressive Catholic schools, and there's obviously a huge pederasty problem in the Catholic Church. Like, not minimizing any of that shit. Like, you do not have to hand it to the Catholic Church. I just think that it's just a very, very blunt metaphor. Like, it's exceedingly blunt, like they're literally fighting kids in tournaments.
Yeah.
Hey, there's just like an element of this that ends up becoming laughable to me when it is dead fucking serious.
Yeah.
Like, I am supposed to be feeling big feelings about this. I got the sense, this is big, deep, big, tragic. And I was just like, God damn, a little on the nose, huh?
Yeah.
It reminds me of like that National Lampoon, like, buy this book or we'll shoot this dog thing. And somebody looking at that and being like, God, it's so fucking sad when dogs die. I can't believe that dog's going to be shot. Like, if somebody shot that dog, it'd be so goddamn sad. Not, exaggerating for humor, for effect.
I see people around me not buying the book, and I shake my head because they want the dog to die.
Yeah. What is it? You want this dog to die? Do you not like dogs? Like, no, it's just, it's a joke. It's too big.
Yeah. Yeah. These fights are fine. It's basically indistinguishable from the other encounters, except for the fact that you're being scored on them, which you are in the second half anyway. We're not fighting Sarah right now. We are fighting alongside her, and we beat the first wave, and Sarah stops. She calls up to the cardinal and says, like, hey, that's enough. I've put in my dues. You haven't delivered on your promise for me. Like, everybody else here is fighting for ascension and cleansing. Only through attrition can we be cleansed. She wants her brother back. She's eyes on the prize. She wants her brother Michael, who is being held by the church.
We fight more of these monsters, and Sarah says, I've done it. I've done all I'm going to do. The cardinal goes, I'll give Michael his freedom, and then pulls out a gun and shoots him in the head, Joker style. And again, goes silent. It's supposed to be very intense.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
It's shocking.
Yeah, it's Joker shocking though.
I didn't expect. I mean, Joker shocking is shocking.
He thinks crime is funny.
But I didn't expect that. I didn't expect him to pull out a fucking 9 and ice that kid w's tied up on the platform.
But doesn't it feel like really selling past the close
a little bit
after the arena fight? Like it really starts feeling like a Marilyn Manson fan drawing in the margins of a notebook.
Yeah.
I say it like juvenile in terms of how it's presenting its metaphor. This is what I mean. Like, it's comically evil.
Yeah.
And again, the Catholic Church does a lot of evil things without just fighting kids in basement tournaments and shooting them in the head. Like,
the Catholic Church is very rich. Where do you think all that money came from? Plundering the entire world,
plundering the skulls of several young men.
Yeah, running books on boy fights.
Yeah, books on boy fights, and then mining the sweet juice from inside their brains that they open up with bullets.
Yep.
Fucking A. We get another vision at this point. This kind of like visual poem that describes the process of Sarah letting the nightmares in. Yes. She stares in this beast eye on the edge of a cliff and flings herself off.
Yeah.
Again, characters constantly suicidal ideation.
Yes. Yeah. This is a loss that is too big to deal with, and she's gone hollow. She is in a frenzy. She attacks us primarily with these very long slash combos. And some like red violence balls that will do some very light homing.
Yes. Yeah. They'll kind of head out towards you. She sometimes has these kind of triangular shock lines that come out, and these explode in AoE. If you're up on next to her, you want to get your spacing right.
Yes.
After we're doing this, as we're fighting, a tall figure warps in and stops the battle. It says it wasn't supposed to end like this. Or she says that. She raises her arms, and then you're at the bonfire outside of camp.
This is the woman who rescued us at the beginning, who kind of woke us up, revived us in the river.
Yes. So we wake up, we walk along from the camp, and we reach this construction site in this rundown city. There are these ghosts of these hood figures walking back and forth, and we climb to the top of this tower and find Christian here. Yeah. He says, we don't have to get to it right away. Sit down and let's talk a spell. And we look at this distant radio mast.
Yeah.
On the horizon.
Yeah. He says his dreams are fading. That's a sign that the end is near. this corruption that is coming, being taken away, something essential. And he says, I don't see any point of going on. And kind of one of the biggest things that stings about this is like, would we have been friends before, or like were we friends before all of this? You know, like I can't actually remember, and our character is mute. It's worth saying. Yes. There is no confirmation on this.
Yeah. And then he goes, I hate you. You dying is the only way. And he starts a big shonen fight. Same combos, big laser. Before you finish him, he warps away saying, why don't you just stay down like the rest of them? He's going to erase you and unmake you there. Again, like what I do, man. You find the crane key down on the bottom floor here, which allows you to move some debris. So you can go deeper into this location. And this next location looks like kind of a modern city streetscape with construction going on here.
Yeah. There's like street lights and stuff.
Yeah.
This is another big dungeon. You are going around trying to find keys to equipment, moving walkways, lifting barriers, things like that. All while, again, engaging in the combat. I think this is about where the combat starts like singing, and quickly it's going to become a lot.
Yeah. This is good. Like, it's still everything in the first playthrough I'm pretty happy with play-wise. This is good. You reach this balcony railing. This big nightmare called the Depths appears. He's a background boss. Its head is in the background. Its hands come down. So he slams down, has these shockwaves. If you're just doing normal attacks, you have to take these hands. You can parry him though. It has that really good, like, this thing looked too big to parry, but you can parry it.
Love it.
Feeling almost like a Sekiro thing. Really, really good. Halfway through, it recharges and sends these two marionette nightmares to fight you. So it has ads while it sits back and watches.
Yes. And then its health bar fills up again, and we're about to fight it when this blue figure rushes in from the darkness and says, hey, that thing is going to swallow everything whole if we don't use this crane in the distance to kill it. We need to run. And this gets into a section where we're running through the wilderness. She is holding the darkness back. We have like a small time limit to defeat the enemies in an arena before we progress until we get to the foot of this crane that we have to run up.
Yes. And then we get in there with this room full of red crucifixes, and there's a person there in front of us. The only thing we can do is attack this person. We do. And then we wake up in track 7, Lethean, forget river. The
Arboretum, tree place.
Yeah, tree place. Forget river. It's a no member. The this blue person wakes us up. We're in this river by a snowy wood, and they say, "Hey, you're acting strange back there. Are you looking for Lethian? You know, I've seen a lot like you coming through recently. You're not the first. You won't be the last. Does that make you feel better?" This person being a little guide that takes you to Forget River.
So you need to stop calling it Forget River.
I'm never going to stop calling it Forget River. It's a perfect description. Yeah.
Oh gosh. So she says, "Hey, you go on ahead and I'll catch up with you," which is not how a guide works.
No.
But the pacing is kind of interrupted here. Sometimes we just kind of do a slow walk while some dialogue happens. And she says, "So Natalie, or what are you calling yourself nowadays? You're ready for this to end, right? So whatever name we put in, it's Lucah by default. It is not the name, that this guide knows us by."
Yes. You walk along the path and we get these dialogue choices, but we can only, and they're all, it's very Fallout 4. Like they mean a lot of the same things.
Yes.
But we can only respond with ...
In the first playthrough.
On the first playthrough. There's changes in the second playthrough, even though I don't know when it changes, what doing the different answers changes when you can do them.
Yeah.
Reach these small buildings where you have to go inside, and there are these gate rifts. We have to fight the enemies in order to proceed back to the real world, going through a series of these.
Yeah.
And we reach the final gate. The blue person says, "Hey, once you go through, there's no going back." Is non-existence really so bad? It didn't bother us before. We want to come back to life.
Yes.
Yeah, I suppose.
And she apologizes, saying, "Yeah, I'm just never going to understand you." And then we get a vision. And this is one that is pretty tragic. It's Lily. Lily's her name. Kind of crying. And then there's this outburst of violent images and words. And her character feeling guilty for, breaking her heart, for, this rejection, and just she has this, just this hellfire comes out, the corruption calls to you. And then you're alone.
Yep. You're in the dark and you see a prompt to hold the right stick to transform. And when you do, you are in this kind of other realm. We've transported into a mindscape of some kind. There's a boss called the Harbinger, you may remember, from the beginning of this, who we can fight, and we're really good now. This is our secret power up we can do.
Yeah. So the transform, you do a lot more damage. You're faster. You can, your stamina drains less. This is at the expense. So this power is at the expense of increased corruption speed.
Yes. Yeah. We go north here. We're at this camp. We can rest. And there's a priest here who's like, "Do you feel like giving in?" We say no. And we take the elevator up the top. We fight through some kind of combat hallways and rooms until we reach the top of this tower. And it asks us several times what we want to go through. You're going to have to face your own consequences. You have no one but yourself but to blame. I had no idea what that meant.
Same.
Again, it's cart before the horse problems. Like, if you're going to make this decision feel bad and weighty and want to give me pause, I do not know the stakes. You very purposely withheld those until playthrough 2.
Mm-hmm.
So sure, I don't care. Flip a coin. Whatever will get me through this faster. I was literally trying to second guess the game, saying in video game semiotics, this would be a bad ending thing that would make me do it over again. Yeah. What can I do to be done with this? Mm-hmm. And that's not good. That's not, that's not an encouraging thing to be a motivating factor in decision-making in games, I feel like.
Yeah. I kind of like with Christian, I don't know what I did. And even with the fullness of, knowing what happens in playthrough 2 and at the end, when who I am and kind of what the nature of this world possibly is, the person who is saying, "Are you ready to face the consequence of your actions?" I know what those actions are. I don't see how it relates to what I've done, getting here. Right.
Yeah. And again, not knowing that until after you've already been asked to make the choice, I don't think is a great move. Personally, we get up there. Christian's up there. He points at this kind of black sun on this cross there, a sun that doesn't shine. That's their cleansing. And he's underwhelmed to see it finally.
It's a crock. This is the paradise we were promised. We've been walking through the paradise And, it was nothing. And this is the thing we were told to go to, and it's basically nothing. So here we are.
And then he goes shonen. He says, show me you're better than me. Show me that you deserve to go. The constant ranking of people that happens in shonen.
Yeah.
I gotta know who's the best.
Yeah, I don't know what my combat ability has to do with your self-worth. I'm very sorry that you feel this way. I really am.
I'm going to hazard nothing, and you telling me that it doesn't change that, they give us the option to taunt him during the fight. Taunting makes an enemy take more damage when they've been taunted.
Yeah, I think it's an interrupt, or it draws them in as well. I'm not sure.
He's going to taunt you, and you're going to taunt him. So everyone's going to be yelling anime things at each other as you sword fight. There are a couple of different phases for this. His attack gets bigger each time. The last one, he's just crawling on the ground.
Yeah.
So you're just like literally finishing him off.
Yeah. All we can do, is attack. Do like a coup de grace.
Yep. You finish him off. You grab his laser familiar and go to the sun. The prompt says end. And you can no longer do transform. You can no longer turn into your evil phase or whatever. Your Hulk phase.
Can't go Super Saiyan. Yeah.
Can't go Super Saiyan there. And we walk to this field of flowers where we fought Messiah before. We fight Messiah again. And it's tough, but now it's not hopeless.
Right. It is not designed to be lost. Although it did take me a few tries. Like, this is
it's tough.
Hard. Yeah. Tons of projectiles, lots of quick combos with very little telegraphing. This is one of the few enemies that doesn't have the cross signal for when you want to parry. This is one where you're going to really want to lean on those rewinds in order to learn the patterns and stuff. Difficult, but still extremely rewarding, I found.
Yeah, manageable. Yeah. When you finish it, it calls you Natalie. It says, I did everything I could. I'm sorry it had to be like this. And then explodes. We get a memory, and this is a visual style change. This is a pixelated actual photograph from an overpass. Talking about how you always stop as you go by this overpass every day, and you always stop to look at the cars there.
Yeah. And then, it says, I just imagine going down, falling, going deep into this oblivion. And then we get this thing that is called Sacrament 5. There are sacraments that are just like named cutscenes that you're going to get for various conditions that you possibly met. You're going to see more of them in playthrough number 2. But it describes jumping from this bridge and wishing that you could grow wings. And there's this kind of counterpoint. There's a voice that says, we fall so he may rise, rejoice so he may be cleansed. So he may be cleansed, and pray we never awake again. So just kind of this sick twisting of religious language to talk about the falling being its own kind of ascension, and the oblivion that waits at the end as kind of a false paradise.
Yeah. Ex oblivione. We get our credits. The voice from the beginning says that told you everything would be okay because it was trying to help you, but maybe you can break through like a whisper at the end of the world. It calls to you. And then you go into New Game Plus, but the plus is very cheekily a cross. New Game Cross. Everyone knows my opinions on playing a game twice. I don't like it. I think it's a lame trick. It's not optional. Mm-hmm. A lot of this is crass repetition. Yeah. That has been true in all of the games I played that have this. Mm-hmm. My understanding is Nier Automata does it better, but not right away. Mm-hmm. Like playthrough 2 is still half the same. And then it eventually gets completely new.
Yeah.
Don't know if that's, I haven't played it.
It's
my understanding through osmosis.
You're playing as somebody different, so the combat is different.
Yeah. But you're still going through all the same plot beats and areas for at least part of it. Yeah. Not good enough. Like I don't want to repeat something for no reason. I just never want to do it. Yeah. This game, like all games that do this, does not justify it. It's a really short game, so it's not a big deal, right? I got bored in the first half of playthrough 2 of this because I'd done it all before.
It's weirdly just a different version at a different scale of the multi-phase boss problem. I beat this boss and then the meter fills back up again. Yeah. God damn it.
It's really demoralizing. And at this point, like as much as I like this game. I think that again, it's like a B, right? Overall, this is a good game. I think it's worth playing, especially if you like this kind of combat. Yeah. It's fun. I would have been okay being done with it. And partly because I had the suspicion that it wasn't going to have like a lot more tricks to show me. And that turned out to be correct. Like it gets harder, but the way it gets harder, there's a lot of HP sponge enemies in the back half of the second playthrough. Yeah. I would have been okay being done with it. Like put all this story stuff from playthrough 2 into playthrough 1. I don't think this game gains anything through the juxtaposition of looking back on the stuff through fresh eyes. I would have rather just had told the story that it was telling.
Agreed.
So drove me nuts. Frustrating. Yeah. And it begins with a huge, long text adventure section.
Right.
Which is fine, but just a huge, inelegant info dump.
Yeah. So this playthrough is going to be bookended by actual, detail and information about the characters. So it is welcome, but also, again, weird pacing in this.
Yes. Yeah. Begins with Sacrament 1. We've seen Sacrament 5. This is a text story about 2 girls at some kind of religious sanctum. They're not allowed to dream. So the main one dreams enough for both of them. The Mother Superior, who's there, who's accompanied by scary sound effects, demands that the one called Anna call herself Maria, change her name.
Yeah. And punishes them. This is happening for a few of them, but punishes them for using their given name or the name they prefer. Right.
Yes.
So Anna and the other one, Naomi, they make attempts to escape, but they can't. It's mostly like testing the fences kind of stuff. And we get this roll call at school with some familiar names. We have Natalie, we have Christopher, Sarah, Kira, Jonathan, Lily, Anna. Which is weird. Oh no, it's not weird. Natalie. Yeah, there we go.
Yes.
Because there's Natalie and Naomi. Yes, Natalie is the name that she is being forced to take, I believe. Yeah.
Yes. Her sanctum name is Davi. Right.
Okay. There we go.
Yeah, because when she's talking, she hesitates and says her sanctum name, and Mother Superior looks at her and is like, "You're gonna get it.
Yeah,
you're gonna get beat," and this is what causes the escape.
It might be that none of them are named Naomi. I just got the end names mixed up.
It might also be that they just introduced 8 names in a row without tying them to a visual or a narrative thing, and expecting you to remember from cutscenes that happen in the middle of fights in playthrough 1.
That could also be. Yeah.
It's confusing. So because of this, because the one person is going to get that savage, or that does get savage by Mother Superior, they decide to escape.
Yes.
They leave, but Mother and her nightmares come after them. Anna looks back into the woods, sees Naomi grow these radiant wings before the nightmares kill her.
Yeah. And Anna goes into this rage and kills Mother Olivia, and everyone who was with her before carrying Naomi's body to the ocean. This is going to be reinterpreted. Like the events of this are going to be presented in a different way, but what is being escaped from is going to change.
Yes. Yeah. So your character then wakes up next to the river like we did before, with the tall figure there. They say trauma has bloomed in the center of the world. You have been marked. And your corruption rolls back to 0 from where it was.
Yeah. And again, very little changes in this playthrough. Like
Yes.
there's a new ability that you get called Scorn to Virtue, which will reduce all of your stats but double your prayer points, which is an interesting way to add challenge in a new game plus, which is okay, take away your numerical advantage but have these like strange situational abilities benefits are going to pop up.
Yeah. And then the biggest change, as we mentioned, your corruption meter goes up quickly and you're scored on each encounter. So if you beat them very quickly, you get a lot of time taken off of your corruption meter. There are a lot of points.
Yeah.
We go through the game as we did before. When you get up to the Messiah, that death that you're going to take, you get a message about how the revert skill is now available at bonfires, allowing you to reinvest your points.
Yeah. Or no, this is the one that lets you restart. Yeah, it's and it's the same up until there's new content when you get to the trailer park. Remember that guy over on the coast who talked about, people leaving him behind because he ended up being something they didn't want? We're going to learn more about him, or at least a story that is associated with him. Here is Sacrament number 4. We get this red kind of cutaway computer display text about Operation Gamora. There was this huge explosion that wiped out an entire city, except for this school building at the center that is just impossibly, it has remained standing. And this operation is to go to the school and find out if it was related to terrorist or heretic activity.
Yeah. Operation Gamora.
Yeah.
We play this like a turn-based JRPG, leading these soldiers in who encounter the nightmares for the first time. One of them's attacked and starts bleeding, and they say, like, angels shouldn't bleed.
Something is wrong.
Something is wrong. Our POV character gets to the roof and confronts a nightmare child who's there. Shooting this doesn't work, so he has to kill the child with his bare hands.
Yeah. But the child turns around and turns out to be him. It is him as a child, and he remembers letting down all of his friends as a child before the sequence ends. And there is I feel very voyeuristic about this because there's like this sequence has a dedication. It says the story is dedicated to the Norton crew. They know who they are. I'm sorry I went so far away. I know I still love you all, even if I'm not very good at showing it, Colin. This is a message from the developer to his friends.
To his antivirus program.
You know what? I fell in with a bad crowd, like John McAfee. Bad guy, shouldn't have gone to Belize with him.
No. And then please stick to the rivers and the Nortons you're used to.
Yeah.
I felt I didn't like how this felt. Like on the surface, I like it, right? Like it's a very personal message and it obviously means something. Voyeuristic is the exact right word. Like I felt like I was reading someone's diary.
Yeah.
Like after that happened, I didn't like it. I didn't like the feeling it had.
I also don't know what this little bit of play and story has to do with these people.
Yeah. Fucking Operation Gamora to a school that survived a bomb that's filled with monsters. And then you strangle your young self.
Yeah.
Like it feels very juvenile to me. And I mean, no offense to the guy who made this. Like there's something I'm not getting that is keeping me at arm's length.
Yeah. And like this does resonate with me personally because I totally know the feeling of drifting away from friends, specifically because of depression or that withdrawal that kind of comes in. Like, yeah, I didn't return calls at first because I was depressed, but then I felt really, really bad that it had been so long.
But what on earth does that have to do with leading a paramilitary strike team into a bomb, like the single standing school?
Well, obviously,
and strangling your child self.
Obviously, you've never struggled with this, Gary.
Yeah, I don't know what it means to, I understand what you mean. Like you're trying to say that like the base idea of what it's trying to communicate is good.
Yeah.
My point is that's not enough.
Right.
Like just saying the thing that is supposed to be the relatable emotion is not the same thing as portraying an allegory or a story that expresses the relatable emotion.
The two things are not related. Yeah,
they're not related, and that's where this falls down.
Yeah.
Right. Like that is very relatable. Letting your friends down. Like I didn't know how to show it. That happens all the time. That's something even when I'm not in like the depths of depression that happens. I feel like an immense amount of guilt for friends who I don't spend enough, time thinking about or reaching out to or whatever.
Yeah.
I think like, oh, do they think I don't care about them? I do care about them. It's just life is busy and big. I get that feeling. It entirely fails on a metaphor level.
Yeah.
To express that. And maybe if I was part of the Norton crew, I would understand what this school and these nightmares and strangling your younger self would be. I'm just not, and I didn't get enough of a cipher.
Yeah, it's weird because the last bit rings true, but I'm still very alienated because again, the things don't connect. Like you gave me again this very kind of I feel kind of oily, voyeuristic. Like I got the sting of that without any catharsis related to that feeling, putting the thing that came immediately before it into a context, right?
Just saying a thing that I felt before is not enough to win my empathy.
Yeah.
Like saying a feeling that is human is not artful.
Yeah.
Like just naming it. Like you as an artist, like I think that the job is to process that stuff.
Yeah.
And articulate it in ways that are interesting and artful. That's the thing I don't think this game does very well.
You can't just say out loud how he's feeling. That makes me angry.
That's not what I'm saying.
No, I know exactly what you're saying. No, I'm making it's a Futurama joke.
Oh, yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. It is just saying what he's feeling, but it's also all the stuff he says next to it. The lack of juxtaposition that is infuriating.
Yeah.
They leave behind a videotape called The Dream. When we go and put that in a VCR, there are images of an eye. And this opens up a shortcut back to the school.
Right. So you don't have to do the stuff with the keypad. You just get into the back of it. I don't even think you have to do any fighting. You just climb up.
Yes. Yeah. And at the end, you get up to this fight with Christian at the top of there. At the end of the fight, you're given a choice to embrace him instead of kill him.
So when we say at the end, we don't mean at the school. Literally, there's nothing new until you get to the end of the game.
Yes. You continue through all of that stuff. So all the kid fights, all the boy fights, all the subway and the trailer park and the everything until you get to that fight, that shonen fight with Christian. The only difference here is instead of finishing him off, you can embrace him.
Right.
Yeah.
And he says, I'm scared. I don't want to feel or be like this anymore. Like this is not a way to be the way that he has been. So we embrace Christian, and then we wake up. We are in this messy bedroom. There's a TV and a game system on the floor, and we step out into this field of clouds, and we are running north, trying to running north, and then we ultimately find ourselves at the lakeside, where we started the game at the riverbank.
Yeah. The hooded woman who woke us up before, she's there. She says that you remind her of someone she once knew. That innocence, that's what led me here. That's what led me to create all this paradise doomed from the start. Now we're alone. No sun, no God, only an empty faith. And she shows you her real self. Do you see, Natalie? Our hearts are one and the same.
Yeah. And she says, Natalie, you are not meant for this world. You're impure from embracing this corruption. You have let Lucah, this new name that you have been going by, into your hearts. You're now, of this place and need to be flushed out of it. And we go into this very, very tough multi-phase boss fight against Maria. So remember this young love story, these two, these two girls, trying to escape from this church, Anna and Natalie. But now I
think Natalie is non-binary as well. Using they. So I just don't want to, I am unclear, and multiple characters are referred to by multiple names and in multiple contexts. We have not intended to misgender anyone during this. If we did, by using she instead of they, I just don't have the fucking org chart. This game makes it very hard to be a good ally, as hard as I'm trying. So, not necessarily two girls in love. I think one is non-binary.
Okay. And it's not, no specific gender is stated. And I named my character Cole. So you can kind of read into it. play into it how you would like to. Yes, just remember these two characters, oppressed by the church, they want to get away. Natalie got out, and Anna, died. Anna, Maria was the name of, Anna at the church, and she is here fighting under that name, under the assumed name.
Yeah. Very tough. Big damage sponge. Lots of AoEs, multiple phases. Summons lots of ads. Like, this is very difficult.
Yeah.
You beat her second phase there. She goes, Naomi, no. Natalie, no. And she enters her final form, where it's keeping you at a distance. It really wants you to parry. You have to stun her to get in.
Yeah.
Dodge forward to get close enough to her. Mm-hmm. It's a good mechanical like test of the mechanics. It's also phase 3 of a 3-phase boss fight, which I'm never that crazy about.
Yeah.
Where when you die, your corruption can go up, and if it gets to 100, you have to restart.
Yeah. I thought that the Messiah was a much better test.
I think so too. This is where I put on some cheats. Mm-hmm. The risk of my corruption getting to 100 and having to speed run this again was too much for me.
Yeah.
I did not add no more appetite. I was full.
Yeah. So this ends with Lucah telling Anna, saying, I love you, but I can't stay. This is the first time we're getting anything from our character.
Yes.
They say, I can see the edges of this place, and I'm afraid that it will swallow me whole. And we get Sacrament 7, where Naomi leaves in the middle of the night while Anna is dreaming, and goes to the beach to rip out their feathers. And every time they rip out a feather, it's this agonizing process that makes their mind scream out, no, hey, something's wrong. But they're remembering things about Anna that they want to forget.
Yes.
And pulling them out one by one until there is nothing left.
Severing that connection between these two lovers. Then Naomi steps out into the water and starts reading the stories of their life together. Says, when it became harder and harder to fit you into this dream that you had of you and I, it wasn't a dream of our own. It was only yours.
Yeah.
Relatable breakup stuff. Mm-hmm. There's not a parity in the understanding.
Yeah.
Between the two.
Yeah. It was trapped. It was almost a replication of the structure. Just I was being erased. Or effaced in a way that was not, commensurate with my needs to actually grow and become my own person. Yeah. So they know that Anna's was running out after them. As they walk along the water. And the text says, "But I came to the edge, the end of your world, and I took my last step." So this is recontextualizing the fall. This is stepping out of the hell that stepping out of the hell that Maria / Anna had made for Lucah, or
the
Naomi,
bad relationship.
Natalie, the bad relationship, taking this step and choosing the oblivion of the unknown outside of this relationship that used to be their sanctum, but had become a prison of its own, right?
Yes. It's a weird, that's an interpretation I got from this as well. I don't think of stepping out of a relationship as oblivion. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that to you. I'm saying that to the game.
Yeah.
Right. Like the word it uses for this metaphor is oblivion a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And it's not the word or the sentiment I would use.
Yeah. It's the unknown. It's the edge of the map. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's tons of stuff there. Mm-hmm. It's not an oblivion at all. And it's very different than desiring oblivion, because you don't want to feel, getting out of this relationship is not a way to not feel the stuff. You're going to feel a lot of shit, I don't know. It doesn't totally hold for me. So we're back in the boss arena. Maria has remembered that they're Anna. They apologize for all that they've done and beg forgiveness.
Yeah.
And this is as Christian helps you limp away and talks about how he finally understands that we won't always be alone. We don't always have to be what they want us to be. Someday it will all get better.
Yeah. And then Christian and Lucah get to the edge, and everything falls apart. Christian says, "Hey, I love you," and then hopes that we meet again on the outside of this.
Yeah. And then you get credits, and after the credits, there's a message directly from the developer saying that they're proud of you for finishing the game, and they hope that you can meet the challenges in your own world, and it's okay to be alone sometimes. And I don't like the way that made me feel that he did that. The developer did that was not, I don't think, the intended feeling. Like that is a sentiment I agree with. I just could not connect any of these feelings I was having during the game to anything.
Yeah.
It didn't even feel, it felt like a Lego kit with missing parts to me, and not even missing parts like make your own thing that's fun. It's like make your own little monster that could conceivably be something if you squint.
It's it's a Lego kit with missing parts that ends up feeling a little bit more like an IKEA IKEA thing with missing parts. Like, well, shit,
a lot of missing parts, and it's like I agree with the sentiment. I don't want anyone to think that I'm like clowning on or shitting on the idea that it's good to meet challenges in your world or that it's okay to be alone sometimes. Like that feels obvious to me, like uncontroversial. Unsubtle to a degree that, like, of course I don't disagree with that. That's a good message. I really have a lot of problems with how this developer tried to tell that message. I just don't think it worked. As a storytelling exercise, I don't think this game works.
And I don't know the sudden swerve, because this information is presented so late, into this being about a dysfunctional relationship.
Yes.
When very little was, kind of laid out before. And to me, trying to draw an equivalence, or at least point out likenesses. Yeah. To parallel what it seemed like it was about with this other thing. Like, I really don't know, given the fact that this whole thing was a construct, is this a process of Maria/Anna letting Lucah go? Is Lucah actually involved in this? If so, are they, how does Christian's role fit into that? Because it should be Anna and Christian who are at odds with each other, kind of going up against, like, everything that Christian's character was about is kind of taken away and leads to him feeling very I don't know, just scattered. Very, very scattered character.
Yeah.
And very important as one of the three named characters who shows up most consistently. Right.
Yeah. Like, obviously a load bearing character to the plot. I think that the problem with interpreting that you're running into is like saying it's swerving into being about this as if it has an answer. Yeah. And I don't think it does. I think this is a work that wants to plausibly be about that, but plausibly be about a lot of things.
Yeah.
And get by on a general quantity, not quality of themes.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of things this can be about. And I know that jazzes some folk. And I also recognize that those folk may not be jazzed by this, because there are degrees of that. There are ways to do that well. Like, this is a complicated work that engages with a lot of different themes. I just don't think this one successfully does it. It's not a good example of something that is successfully grappling with many themes.
Right.
And in just on a personal level, entirely failed to touch my heart, which, to have this sincere message at the end from the developer, I need to kind of be in an emotional space with it. But like, the challenge of the combat with the challenge of overcoming these issues did not connect. There was a real lack of specificity of detail, like other than a huge dump at the end when you're talking about these things that, the relationship, like the things that they loved about each other, which, as there wasn't scaffolding for. Some of those are good details. It just wasn't enough, and it wasn't unified at all. Like, it's pretty rare that I've played a game where I've liked the mechanics as much as I've disliked the story presentation as this.
Yeah.
It's a real big gulf for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lucah. I'm really glad we did it here instead of Bonfireside Chat.
Yes.
It would have been a real similar episode, but it would have been very difficult to try to explain who all of these bosses are and what they represent. And this is not a very documented game.
No.
If you try to look up like fan theories on that stuff, there's some, but I haven't read anything that's very compelling in terms of unraveling this. And again, most of the reviews talk about how fun it is to play.
Right.
There is kind of a whole mystery nobody wants to solve, it feels like.
Yeah.
As well. So
yeah.
Sorry to end on such a bummer note. It's a weird thing because when I was playing this game, there were parts of it that were like pretty fun, and then when I walked away from it, I did not feel good.
Yeah,
didn't have a good feeling about it.
It's a weird one, and it runs into that thing where, like, I don't know, because the combat is sufficient, we don't talk about it on here very much. We can say like, oh yes, this boss felt like a good test, or it didn't. That is there, but this game is also concerned with telling a story, and that is the thing that we're gonna spend more time talking about. So it's one of those things where like this is this is a B, and we sound way more negative about it than we actually are. Which is,
I will also throw out for me that the combat does lose its gas. It does sell past the close, and it's a short game. Like if I were to have this be like combat without scenario design or without encounter design can only go so far for me. All of the encounter design in this is done with mix-ups. But again, the enemies are very polite. If you walk off the screen, they won't tend to follow you. One of them will follow you, the rest of them don't. So you're not getting like encounters. You're not getting like the environment plays into this fight in this interesting way. Yeah. They're just arena fights doing overhead character action stuff. And even in like more traditional character action games, that's an issue for me. Like the endless bland hallways of Bayonetta were an issue for me.
Yeah.
Like the fact that those environments didn't matter. Like I just need a more holistic game than Punch Out, overhead Punch Out with poetry in between the parts.
Yeah.
So yeah, bad taste in my mouth. Like, even though it was kind of fun.
Like with everything, I know I harp on this, but could do with more consonants, more integration between mechanic and play. For a creation that seems very interested in both, you would think that those two would have met.
Yeah. And knowing the origin of it, like that it came from this game jam, like, and the action came first, and then the story, like, it makes a lot of sense. It's also, I will say that it's not done any favors by, it's not done any phasers. It's not done any phasers, flange, reverb by the games on either side of it. Right. So like we said Hades, which I think is a better action game, like more fun, more variety. And then the next thing we're doing is Citizen Sleeper, which is a game that is 100% relevant detail. Like it's very easy to connect with that game with your heart because it's all very human stories. It's like the opposite of how this game tells its story. So if you have anything to say about Lucah, we want to hear from you, especially if the story stuff resonated with you, like definitely want to hear from you. But also if you have anything to say about Citizen Sleeper or Subnautica, please send us a message at Duckfeed.tv/contact by the 15th.
Yes. And if you have thoughts about March's games, which are going to be Cuphead, The Coin Game, Mark of the Ninja, or Crisis, please write in by the 15th of March. Again, using Duckfeed.tv/contact. If you have thoughts about multiple games, please write multiple responses. That's just how the episodes need to come together. Both Subnautica and Crisis are going to be premium episodes. So everybody's going to get the generalities and the mechanics on those, but kind of the full recap of what goes on, the back part of the episode, that's going to be for our patrons. People have gone to patreon.com/DuckFeed.tv.
Yeah, we really appreciate that. You can also rate and review, subscribe on your podcast directory of choice. Finally, last but not least, if you are a non-straight white cis person and you have a project you'd like to draw some attention to, please send me an email at gary@duckfeed.tv. This episode is brought to you by the Hazardous Opinions podcast. This is found at Zencastr. So that's ZENCASTR.com /hazardous -opinions. It is a movie and games review podcast. You can also find them on Instagram at Hazardous Opinions Pod. I have not gotten a chance to look at it yet, but it looks cool.
Yeah.
They've done some cool stuff. Some things I'm curious about, like the Metro remake, which I do not know very much about. I feel like that kind of came and went without people talking about it.
Yeah. They talked about at least one thing that we talked about before. They have an episode on Hellblade's Senua's Sacrifice and some big movies. They've got, Dr. Strangelove. They've done an episode about, they've got Good Will Hunting and some newer things like The Gray Man. Yeah.
I've heard good things about The Gray Man. Haven't not watched that, but check out that podcast if you'd like to support them. That's at zencastr.com/hazardous-opinions.
Yeah. Trying to think of other stuff, but no, thank you for your support and thank you for listening. We just appreciate you. What should they watch out for until next time, Cole? Oh, anything I could joke about would feel bad at this point. Yeah. I guess watch out for cardinal fights.